All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Saturday. Once again, we have Saturday NFL, a 2-game slate. Third time I am going to try to catch the magic feather that will grant me a wish to allow me to make money on a 2-game slate, Greg. How are you doing, good sir? I'm going into this with the correct attitude.
Yeah, well, for one, I'm excited for the games today. First and foremost, more than any of the other, there's 3 games that really matter for this weekend. You've got the 2 games today, you got Sunday Night Football, then you got a main slate tomorrow. They're just going to be absolute chaos and mayhem because almost none of those games matter. And even the ones that do matter for seeding, the teams don't really seem to care. Like the game could matter for seeding for the Chargers, but Justin Herbert's not playing. The game could matter for seeding for the Eagles, but they're expected to rest all of their starters. So a lot of the games tomorrow are going to be completely meaningless, but today's games, very important. We've got the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Winner wins the division. That shouldn't win the division because all those teams suck, but the winner is going to win the division. And well, actually not even necessarily. The loser is out. The winner likely wins the division. If it's the Panthers, they win the division. However, if the Buccaneers win today, but then the Falcons beat the Saints tomorrow, then they no longer end up winning the division and the Panthers still win. So the Panthers could lose today, which is really how this division should play out. You should get into the playoffs by losing a game. But yeah, so the Panthers in all likelihood are going to win the division if, well, they do win, I should say, if they win. The Buccaneers probably win if they win today. Either way, it's a must win for both these teams. Then for tonight, you've got the Seahawks and the 49ers playing for the number 1 overall seed. So that is also going to be pretty exciting for today. So I'm looking forward to these games, Emac. There are a ton of interesting talking points, including rookie of the year potential on the line for the early game because Ted McMillan and Emeka Egbuka have nearly identical stats, and McMillan's your favorite to win rookie of the year. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. So for those, it is a little tricky. So just to say it a different way, not that Greg was wrong by any stretch, he was correct. If Seattle or San Francisco win, you're the number 1 seed. Tie, Seattle's the number 1 seed. For the early game here, if Tampa Bay wins, they still need New Orleans to beat Atlanta. If Atlanta wins, no matter what, Carolina's in. So both teams should be trying today because if Carolina loses and New Orleans wins, Carolina doesn't go on. It's a weird combination. So basically, Carolina has a second chance, completely beyond their control.
Yeah, so we'll see. And then also, it's funny, Boss Bro saying Tet should get rookie there. Maybe it depends how today plays out. Like, what if he has another? He had 1 catch for 5 yards last week. What if he has 1 catch for 5 yards again this week, and like Egbuka is the leading receiver in the game or something like that? Then you would have a scenario where Egbuka would have better. Like, I'm probably way more interested in rookie of the year than pretty much everybody else. But I don't know what's going to end up happening with the rookie of the year race. I think there's a lot of cases you can make for a lot of guys, and none of them really deserve it all that much.
Indeed. And then the other thing, if it doesn't sound like we're already confusing and talking in circles, that's what the analysis is going to feel like today. Because on 2-game slates, there are some feel-good plays, and then there are some not feel-good plays. Everybody is in play today. There are no bad plays. There are only better plays. We used to say that in college. There is no bad beer. There's only better beer. I'm sure you would say that with a little bit of the devil's lettuce every now and then, Greg. That's probably your wheelhouse there.
No, I think there are bad plays today. Somebody can play a backup quarterback.
Okay, fair enough. That was you are correct. Once again, why do I go against Greg? All right.
You tell people there's no bad plays, and then somebody will be like, "Hey, I found a way to roster Lamar Jackson." How did you do that?
Yes, I'm playing M. Evans for Carolina. This will be sweet. No, not Michael, not Mike Evans, Mitchell Evans. But let's get into the fun here. So I figured the easier way to do it is kind of talk passing games for each team and then running backs, just because I think that's the better way to go here. So most people are going to be feeling pretty strongly about Brock Purdy here. That makes sense. He's got the best skill position players. arguably the best coach of everybody on the slate, or at least the best offensive strategist on the slate today, which is very important because he's going against the Seattle defense. Now, one thing we want to know about the Seattle defense, they're like number one in most of the advanced metrics, DVOA, passing efficiency, all that stuff, but they don't generate as many sacks and takeaways. They are still, I think, sixth in the league for takeaways, but it's like 1.9 per game or something like that. Nothing crazy. It's not bad, but it's nothing crazy. And then their sacks are just under 3 per game. It's because they get so much pressure with their defensive tackles they cause pressure and harassment of the quarterback, but they don't ever actually end up sacking him as much. Now, Purdy, very mobile, and he can move around. So those are the keys that you need to do well against Seattle. We saw Stafford carve them up with Puka Nacua. Now, Stafford not as mobile as Purdy, but again, good offensive coach that can scheme things. So that's where Seattle's beatable. So George Kittle was back last week. He's the clear tight end here that we want to play. Christian McCaffrey literally doing everything. He has some obscene number here. I want to say it. He has 15 or more FanDuel points in 14 of his 16 games. On DK, he has 12 games with at least 20 DraftKings points, 5 of which he had over 30 DraftKings points. So he's the receiver 1 with Kittle, or the pass catcher 1, and then he's the running back 1. Now, his running back efficiency has not been good. Pardon me, his rushing efficiency has not been good this year, but he gets all the red zone touches. He just gets everything. So he's key in that one. And then Ricky Pearsall should be playing. He's still listed as questionable, limited in practice, all that, but he played somewhere around 75 or 80% of the snaps last week, had a pretty good game. The worry about him and Juwan Jennings is Seattle's very good on that outside edge against receivers in the defensive backfield along the sidelines there, and that's where Pearsall usually gets his good plays. But still, all that said, I think I have the San Francisco passing game ranked number 1, but any one of these 4 teams could be the top team today, the way it works out.
You can see here, I've got the data hub up with the QBs here to start, since we're just talking about the passing games. And as far as leverage goes, Brock Purdy is the most negatively leveraged quarterback we have on the slate, but it's not anything super significant. We've got him, 30% owned, most popular QB, 27% chance to be optimal. Usually on these slates, Emac, where it's 2-3 game slate, we'll usually see one quarterback like 40% owned, and one quarterback really low owned. All the quarterbacks are 20 to 30% owned today, though. Purdy 30%, Darnold 27%, Mayfield 22%, Bryce Young 20%. There's kind of interesting narratives that are going head to head here, because in general, the public believes that Sam Darnold turns into a pumpkin whenever the stakes matter in any football game. But the public also believes that the San Francisco 49ers pass defense is god-awful and can't stop anybody. And then also, people like the incentive narratives and believe that Sam Darnold is going to throw for 3 touchdowns because he has a pay bump if he throws 3 touchdowns. Here's one thing. I've been making fun of this a lot this week. You know what guys could do to make a lot of money, Emac? Just score 3 touchdowns
Super Bowl
every week and you make $1 billion.
Yeah, win the Super Bowl. That's what Sam Darnold wants to do. What is it? 3 touchdowns for $1 million? Is that what it is?
Might be like 250,000, but
all right. If it's not $500,000 or more, then that's not.
I mean, it could be. It could be. It would be really funny if the Seahawks are up like 21-14 in the fourth quarter and they can knee it out, but like, no, we have to try to get Sam Darnold one more touchdown pass and throws an interception or something like that. But anyway. If you look at all of our
touchdown, here we go. Just Adam Schefter just tweeted it because Adam Schefter watches our show.
Of course.
1.5 million incentives on the line tonight against San Francisco. Darnold needs 3 touchdown passes to collect $500,000, 150 passing yards for another $500,000, and he needs to raise his current 99.2 passer rating to 100 to collect a third $500,000 bonus. Yeah, they're not pushing for this. He needs to get to the Super Bowl.
Yes, I mean, it's a high leverage game. They're just going to play as well as they possibly could. But also, if it was as easy as just deciding to throw for 3 touchdowns, there'd be a lot of really good quarterbacks in the league. But it's just hard to do in general. But anyway, Emac, there's a couple of things I find interesting. Number one, you've got Brock Purdy versus Sam Darnold for The later game, you've got Baker Mayfield versus Bryce Young in the earlier game. I personally prefer getting exposure to the later game than the early game as far as the QBs and the stacks go. I like Purdy and Darnold more than the other two guys. I know they're a little bit more popular, Darnold and Purdy, but I think that's more than justified. It's not like it's a crazy ownership gap. Nobody's below 20% owned in our projections.
All right. Here, just for those wondering at home, San Francisco has allowed 3 or more passing touchdowns 3 times this year. Darnold has 3 or more passing touchdowns 3 times this year.
All right.
It just
numerology.
It happens.
Numerology.
Yeah. Now I will say the 150 yards he should get. So that half mil's almost in the bag. Almost in the bag. All right. Anything else you want to mention on the San Francisco side, or shall I set the baseline for Seattle here?
That's what I have for quarterbacks.
Okay.
I don't have anything else to add as far as the QBs go. The only real mistake you can make at the quarterback position, because you could justify, none of these guys are horrific plays. You could justify any of them. The only mistake you could make today is playing a backup quarterback.
Yes, completely agree. But quickly on Baker Mayfield, he has all his pass catchers back, which makes things very crowded there in Tampa Bay, but good for him. Remember, he hurt his shoulder, a non-throwing shoulder, on Thursday Night Football. I believe it was against the Rams, 6 or 7 weeks ago. And that has kind of been not helping him, it appears. That sort of coincided with his play sliding a little bit because, remember, he was the front runner early on for MVP. So obviously the Rams wanted to get the MVP for Stafford. So they felt at that time the best way to do it would be to hurt Mayfield, right? Isn't that how this works for incentives? Mayfield did not do very well against Carolina 2 weeks ago when Carolina beat Tampa. He was 18 of 26. That's 70% completion rate, but just 154 yards, 145 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Last week, he made 356 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he did pretty well in the week 15 loss to Atlanta. So we're picking nits here, but he is, I think, perfectly fine. And then Bryce Young. So the interesting thing about Bryce Young is his sack rate has gone down from 10.5 as a rookie to 7 this year last year to 5 and change this year. That's still like way below league average, but it's better for him. His rushing has gone down. Since his rookie year when he ran for 477 yards in 16 games, he has only rushed for 386 yards in the subsequent 27 starts. Remember, he was benched and injured a few different times here. The other thing that kind of hurts him is no Jatavion Sanders. So Sanders had sort of become kind of the security blanket there for him, and he's one of the more dynamic tight ends, but just nothing quite all gets put together for him. So that's a loss, but Tommy Tremble is a nice salary saver there. I believe he's 2,700, if I remember correctly, on DraftKings. So that makes things interesting. And then remember Jalen Coker. Beginning of the year, last couple of weeks leading into best ball, everybody was excited about him, and then he got hurt, and he's finally working his way back. He is an okay receiver. I would say he's probably a little bit better than replacement level, but on his best days, he's like a wide receiver too. Ted McMillan struggled last week. Remember, he was also sick, but he does have less than 5 DraftKings points in 2 of his last 3 games. No bueno there. And then who was the other guy? Jalen McMillan, University of Washington Husky. He is back. Has played a couple games now with Tampa Bay, crowding things out there with Emeka Egbuka. So those are kind of the thoughts there. But this just means there's a lot of pass catching options. So quickly to summarize all of this is why Christian McCaffrey and Jackson Smith and Jigba feel so good, and everybody else is as well. We can make cases for all of them, which we will as we get into the building lineups portion of this. But that, I believe, covers what we need to talk about for the passing games.
Yeah. So I guess you just kind of have to start with JSN at wide receiver. There are so many sketchy options, which Emac was alluding to before. So I've got us sorted here in the boom bust data by optimal rate. And you guys can see we've got JSN, 70% chance to be in the optimal lineup. That does technically have him a little bit over-owned per our data, but still, when I run the sims, I get him more than any other wide receiver by a pretty good amount. And what's really hard is who do you trust behind JSN? Like, this could be a slate where maybe JSN doesn't even have a ceiling game, Emac, but he's just in the optimal lineup because he scores like 18 to 20 fantasy points. Just nobody else has a great game at the wide receiver position. because some of the other options here, if we sort by optimal rate and going down the list, you got Ted McMillan. Well, he had 1 catch for 5 yards last week. And yeah, was he sick? Yes, he was not 100%. But at the same time, too, he's a rookie wide receiver who's been inconsistent over the course of the season. Like you mentioned, it's not like that was the only poor games that he's had recently. Mac, you go back just 3 weeks ago, and he had 2 catches for 25 yards. So overall, if you look at the last 5 games for Ted McMillan, he has 2 catches for 35 yards, 1 catch for 43 yards, 2 catches for 25 yards, 6 catches for 73 yards. That's a really good game. And then 1 catch for 5 yards. Some of those games he had touchdowns to bail himself out, but he's had under 45 receiving yards now in 4 of his last 5 games. And he's the wide receiver is the second highest optimal rate of the entire day. So I am pretty nervous about getting to a ton of Ted McMillan. And then if you look at the Buccaneers wide receivers, that is such a congested situation. You got Mike Evans, you got Emeka Egbuka. McMillan didn't even play. McMillan barely played over 50% of snaps last week. That's something to consider. He was just really efficient with the time he was on the field, but he didn't play a ton last week. And his inclusion in the offense is taken away from Emeka Egbuka. Then you got Chris Godwin. He's starting to look healthier and play a little bit better. But that's a loaded wide receiver position with depth that the Buccaneers have between Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and then Emeka Egbuka. I'm kind of interested in Egbuka as a contrarian option. While he didn't get targeted in the first half of last game, he ended up playing more snaps than McMillan did. What was the total number? I just want to make sure that I'm not speaking.
He had a few more, but
here.
McMillan put the production up. So yeah. You're correct.
Yeah. 58% of snaps for Egbuka, and McMillan played 52% of snaps. So Egbuka did play more than McMillan. It was just McMillan who had the better fantasy game. I was just making sure for a second, I started to second guess myself. It's like, am I remembering that incorrectly? So anyway, you've got Egbuka all the way down here at 11% owned. I don't mind him as a contrarian option, but my favorite Bucs wide receiver is going to be Mike Evans. I just think that when push comes to shove, if they need a play to be made, that's who it is that they're going to feel most comfort with. By the way, Boss Bro, I do not love Egbuka at all for the slate. I want to be clear. I do not love him. I just think if you're trying to find a contrarian wide receiver, your options are Egbuka, Leggett, Demarcus Robinson. I like Egbuka more than those guys. But like there aren't that many contrarian wide receivers today who are around 10% or under. I like Egbuka more than Xavier Leggett or Demarcus Robinson. Those are like the only viable contrarian wide receivers. As far as the other guys go for Carolina, I think Jalen Coker is all right at $4,300. The ownership looks about fair. Is there anybody else from the Carolina side of the game that you really do like as a wide receiver?
No, it's pretty limited. Tremble, I did put in my cash game lineup. For those of you looking, Team Free Money's got cash games for both showdowns today and the classic slate over there on DK username Emac, just $1. If you want my full breakdown of everything, go follow me on Tails. I got it all up there, full rankings for the full game slate, as well as bets. And if I get some more follows, I'll write up the evening slate as well. I said that last week, Greg. What I said, if we get to like 325 followers, I'm almost at 500. This is
look at you go.
This is like very fun. It's fun starting something new here. So you guys can follow me on Tails. Of course, you guys get Greg, Laffy. They're putting out free content constantly. Jake Hari's putting out all the hockey bets, and then Ben Raza and Josh Engelman. Josh is free. Ben Raza and Eric Lindquist also have some free content, but they have premium packages as well. You got to pay to see the good stuff, but they put plenty of good wagers out in front. Just check out Tails for free. That's tails.bet. But
I've also got
so Tommy Tremble's really the only other guy, and then we just throw in Mitch Evans. He ended up playing, I want to say like 40% of the snaps, and I think he had 2 targets to Tremble's 1 last week. A very, very small sample size to even try to consider, but those would be your touchdown hunting options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess we should also probably we got some super chats. We get hit on those in a second while we finish up talking about the wide receivers in the early game. But I guess also it makes sense for us to rank our order of priorities for the Tampa Bay Bucs pass catchers. just because I know that's something that's going to be top of mind for a lot of people. Pretty comfortably, it's going to be Mike Evans 1 for me. Is that the same for yourself?
Agreed.
Then second, I'll go with Godwin over McMillan. I see Einsteinium in chat asks thoughts on Jalen McMillan. I know that he's had really good results lately. It scares me that he's just not playing a ton, though. I feel a little bit better about Godwin, who also I presume is going to be lower owned. McMillan also is the kind of guy on a 2-game slate like this, is somebody who, coming off a big game, I think his ownership is going to get steamed. We only have him projected for 15% ownership. I think this is something that's going to be outside of just data, and people are going to be like, McMillan was really good last week. He's the number 1 wide receiver for the Buccaneers. I think McMillan comes in like 25 to 30% owned.
Yes, I would agree. He's not going to be sneaky.
No, I think he's going to be pretty popular. It makes sense in the contest trainer to give a couple of up arrows to Jalen McMillan just to up his ownership a little bit. And then I think it's a reasonable pivot to go Egbuka over McMillan, but I don't have a mass amount of confidence in either. It's really just more of an ownership play.
I completely agree on that. And remember, McMillan missed the entire first 14 weeks of the season because he landed awkwardly on his neck and had some sort of fracture or displaced disc or whatever it was. So he has been out for quite some time. And last year had a little bit of a run down the stretch, but that he was also benefiting from both of the other players being banged up. So similar to how Egbuka got off plus lucky touchdown variance over the first 6 weeks of this season. It was just kind of a mirror image of what McMillan did last year. I love my Washington Huskies, but I was trying to pick one of these guys and I can't. I think Egbuka probably has more of the raw talent overall, and it's not like McMillan has that much more experience than him, because McMillan missed a bunch of times with hamstring issues last year. And we're talking Jalen McMillan for Tampa Bay, for those wondering, not Teteroa McMillan. But if you play them both, are you going to win a McMillion if you play both those guys in the same lineup?
Which two?
McMillian and McMillian. To win $1 million.
It's going to be a popular build. I think a lot of people will be trying to do it.
I'm building out on FanDuel. FanDuel's kind of fun here. So here's where I'm setting my quarterbacks, Greg. 30% Young, 24 for Darnold, 23 for Mayfield, and 22 for Purdy. I'm making a stand and going with Young here. I'm building out 150.
All right. By the way, we just got a projections and ownership update, so I'm making sure that's on screen and see if anything drastic has changed as far as the ownership goes. So I'll circle back to the quarterbacks and then go back to the wide receivers, just because we'd already talked about the quarterbacks. Almost exactly the same. Purdy's actually come down in ownership, so every quarterback is now 22 to 28% owned. So whatever quarterback you like the best, there's no contrarian option and there's no real chalk option at quarterback either. As far as the wide receivers go now, let's see if any of the ownership has changed there. No, not really. We've got McMillan came down. I think once again, McMillan I think is gonna be way more popular than we're projecting him, but everything else, I think, looks pretty reasonable at first look.
All right. Running back. So obviously Christian McCaffrey, he's the guy.
One sec. Want to make sure we answer some of the super chats.
Yes, please. Sorry.
And then we didn't talk about the late wide receivers either. But super chats, we got a bunch from here. First, we've got JB Hughes. Can you run a sim for the Showdown slate? Yes. I'm not going to do it on this computer I have on screen, but I have one run on my other computer that's in front of me, and I could just give you a rundown of what's showing up. Really spread out exposures at the captain spot. Rico Dowdle, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Ted McMillan, and Mike Evans all showed up, and at least 10% of lineups in the captain spot. The one we're most positively leveraged to is Rico Dowdle, sub 10% owned and showing up in 18% of lineups. In the flex, the core options there, the quarterbacks, Then you got Bucky Irving and Rico Dowdle, as well as Ted McMillan. Contrarian options, the Buccaneers and the Panthers defense. So both of the defenses showing up as contrarian options, and then underweight to the kickers, underweight to Jalen Coker, and underweight to Chuba Hubbard. Most notably, the most duped lineups for the showdown. That is going to be nothing crazy duped here either, but the number one most duped lineup, Ted McMillan in the captain spot with Bryce Young, Bucky Irving, Chase McLaughlin, Rico Dowdle, and Ryan Fitzgerald. That's your number one most duped lineup there for the early showdown slate, JB Hughes. Now I've got Anthony Hunt wants to know, is it crazy to roster McCaffrey and Charbonnet in the same lineup, QB, Baker, or Darnold? I prefer Darnold to Baker. I think you were the same, right, Emac?
Correct.
And then is it crazy to roster McCaffrey and Charbonnet together? There's nobody who's the answer is no. For a 2-game slate, that's completely reasonable. The Sims get McCaffrey in more lineups than any other running back. Charbonnet shows up the 4th most of any running back. Him and Kenneth Walker getting pretty similar exposures to them. But no, there aren't too many guys at running back that I'd say like, oh, that's too far removed from being realistic. Charbonnet, McCaffrey, obviously McCaffrey, but then Charbonnet is a good option as well.
Yes. You are probably thinking back to the saying is, oh, you don't want 2 running backs going against each other because blah, 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 blah. Yeah, on an infinite time horizon, 2 running backs playing against each other, probably not the best of ideas on opposite teams because in theory, one of them is going to get more work than the other in lopsided games. It all comes down to touchdowns. You're looking at Christian McCaffrey. He's in a class by himself, and on a 2-game slate, pretty much anything goes. When you look at Charbonnet and Walker, they have incredibly over the last 4 weeks, similar red zone targets, snap count, carries. It's just it's borderline infuriating. Even their yardage is pretty similar. They get there in different ways. Walker's had some more explosive plays. And I think he had one game in that stretch of 11 for 100 yards, 11 carries for 100 yards. But at the end of the day, it's a coin flip for both of them. I think this is not your question, but I think you can play both in the same lineup. But I would prefer to play only 2 of those guys plus Darnold. I wouldn't want all 3 of those guys because I don't think they're going to get the touchdowns from Darnold. So that would be like the only rule I would set.
And then Brad Kaufman wants to know, is Jake Tunges a sneaky boost or Jews?
Use check. So
okay.
On the 2-game slate, you're hoping for a touchdown. Here's the challenge with those guys. Use check is averaging about 1.7 offensive opportunities per game this year. I think he has 1 or 2 touchdowns. Most of his opportunities are via the pass, but I would not really want to play him on a 2-game slate. Jake Tunges, the same thing you're looking at there. His main access to fantasy goodness is when Kittle is out. And we saw that in the 4 weeks Kittle missed at the beginning of the season. We saw that on Sunday Night Football. When Kittle plays, Tunges is a redundancy because he doesn't block as well. He is the pass catching guy, and he can handle that aspect of the game, but he can't block well enough to unseat the other tight end. I'm blanking on his name, Farrell, I think, or anyway, whoever the other tight end is, he can't unseat him. So
I don't think Tunges is a good option. I don't think Juszczyk is a good option either. What's the most fantasy points Juszczyk has scored the entire season?
Probably 8 points on the day he got a touchdown.
Yeah, that's 8 points, by the way, is not good for the slate either. Yeah, like you need him to outscore most of the
top 5. He needs to be a top 5 running back for you to have a chance.
Probably top 2 or top 3. Top 3 at a minimum. So Juszczyk, no. Here's the problem with Tunges. I mean, George Kittle is back. If you want to say you don't think Kittle's going to be 100%, he's just going to be a decoy, and maybe Tunges plays more in that scenario. Okay, but I mean, I don't get any exposure to Tunges in the Sims. I don't know if you do, Emac. We've got Tunges projected for 0.33 fantasy points. We have him barely expected to play. I mean, we almost have him at 0 fantasy points.
Yeah, I would rather play both Carolina tight ends ahead of him.
Yeah, that's going to be a no for both of those guys for me. Anthony Hunt, how would you do a buck stack Buck stack, my top options would be Baker Mayfield to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans if I'm doing a double stack.
That would be the way I would go. You're getting cute if you go elsewhere. Cade Otton is going to be on the field for about 90% of the snaps. The challenge with him is with those 4 wide receivers healthy, he is not going to get that many targets. And when we look at his red zone, I'm just calling it up, he has 4 red zone targets this entire season. So with all of the players hurt this year, Otton still only has 4 red zone targets. That doesn't feel really good. Devin Culp has 1. So that's 5 to the tight end position for the entire season here for Tampa. So I'd probably cross him off. You can cross off Tez Johnson. So it's really, if you're trying to get different, it's Ibuka or McMillan. I guess I'd play one of them over Evans, but I would not feel good about it. Evans' main appeal is he has the best touchdown equity of all of them, including in the red zone. So,
all right, let's see what else we got. Another question from Anthony Hunt. Would you say McCaffrey is a must play? The players the 2 players I get the most exposure to, this isn't crazy. It's pretty sensible, are JSN and McCaffrey, but neither of them show up in near 100% in lineups or anything in the Sims. There's nobody who you have to play today. I would say that the closest thing we have is McCaffrey and JSN, but you don't have to absolutely play both of them.
I would agree with that. On FanDuel, just for reference, I ended up with about 60% of each of them in my 150 lineups. I'm trying to be contrarian, but
Christopher Diaz wants to know, what captain do we like for the Bucks Panthers? Oh my God.
Panthers?
Yeah, just combine them together. Honestly, that might be the way to run the NFC South going forward. They get to the playoffs and just the all-stars of the NFC South get to field their own team. And then it's maybe competent to play against some of the other teams. But anyway, Christopher Diaz wants to know who we like a captain for that game. The most positive one that came out of the Sims is Rico Dowdle. I would say Dowdle if you want to roster a Panthers guy, and then on the other side of the game, Mike Evans if you're looking to roster a Buck. How about for yourself, Emac?
I'm spreading it out. I had Baker Mayfield in my head-to-head lineup. Evans is going to be I've got Evans, McMillan, Bucky Irving, Dowdle, Mayfield, Young, all at 10, McMillan at 8. The Bucks defense at 5, McLaughlin and the other kicker at 4 each. So I'm spreading it out pretty flat, but in my one lineup, I did go Mayfield. But I agree with what the Sim's saying from a leverage standpoint there.
Another question here from Anthony. Thoughts on Bryce Young and Dowdle? Dowdle definitely a good running back play. Bryce Young, there's nothing wrong with him, but I much prefer the later QBs in Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold over Bryce Young for myself. So to me, the quarterbacks are all 22 to 28% owned. There's no real leverage or ownership or anything you do to be crazy at the quarterback position. So with all being about the same, I prefer stacking the later 2 quarterbacks.
Agreed.
Another super chat here. They are pouring in today, Emac. We've got Cully Poston says McMillan plus Evans equals monies. It's simple math. It's simple math. We learned that in 3rd grade.
I think we should all play one of those lineups.
Yeah.
And then we can meet up at Bob Evans when we win.
And we've got some questions in Discord for us as well. Larson wants to know for a FanDuel single entry, Charbonnet or Walker. Boy, it is so hard to get this. More often than not, the right answer is neither of them. But for a day like today, where it's a 2-game slate, you kind of have to choose. I'm going to say Charbonnet for FanDuel just because he's more touchdown equity. It's with minimal confidence, but I'll say Charbonnet on FanDuel, Walker on DraftKings. And just because on DraftKings you're getting the PPR points, FanDuel, the touchdowns matter a little bit more, and that's where Charbonnet is shown to have a little bit more equity.
Yep. And I broke this down. Follow me on Tails. I broke this down, but I'll quickly read it. Last 4 games, Charbonnet is ahead with 14 more snaps. He has a 10-9 lead in targets. It's a 12-6 red zone opportunity advantage for Sharps, 3-1 in touchdowns for Sharps. Kenneth Walker has 3 more carries, and he's $100 more expensive on DraftKings and FanDuel. This is as even as it gets. As a Seahawk fan, a diehard Seahawk fan, I would think they'd play Ken Walker more because he's the more explosive guy. it's sharps, and it's sharps in the red zone, which just is crazy to think about. So there we go.
Yeah. By the way, there's somebody just banging on my door downstairs. So I'm going to read off a question here. And okay, I see what it is. All right. So anyway.
Do you need to go get the door? I can talk for a while.
No, it's fine. It's fine. All right. So we've got another question here. This is from Mega Elite. Wants to know, can you guys go over defenses for this slate, assuming a lean to the first game? Yeah, I prefer the first game just because it's I feel more confident the offenses in the later game than the first game.
Agreed. Full breakdown of defenses over there on Tails. I'm going to drop my link to Tails. Follow me in there. I tell you, this is good stuff. Over the last 4 games, Carolina has 4 picks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 12 sacks. They did only get 2 against Mayfield when they played him, but I think they are the best opportunity to generate fantasy points here. Buccaneers, they only have 1 interception and 1 fumble recovery in the last 4 games. They do have 8 sacks, but they only got to Young twice. They're kind of better at stopping the run. They don't generate a lot of turnovers and sacks, which is a little bit annoying. The 49ers, they have a lot of people hurt with Fred Warner out and Bosa out. But in week 15 against Tennessee, no sacks or takeaways. Sunday Night Football, no sacks or takeaways. I don't feel good about that, even though Darnold will probably gift them 2 picks. But Seattle, you're like, wow, you're going to want to go to Seattle. Yeah, their best attribute is allowing just 18.1 points per game. They're averaging 2.8 sacks and 1.5 takeaways. So in assessment, yes, you are correct. I'm trying to get overweight, or I am overweight on the 2 early defenses, and I don't mind if I'm playing them against their quarterback. I didn't set any rules.
All right, so one sec. Emac, could you, I have to deal with something. Can you just talk for a second? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, I'm going to drop my little link here in Tails so you guys can follow. If you guys here's a fun one. I have 466 followers right now. Get me up to 490 and I will write up an entire breakdown, full player pool ranking of the Sunday or tonight's football game. I'll rank every player and I'll put comments next to them like I've done for the full game slate. But this is where we get to talk about the Kyle Juszczyks and the Jake Pauls of the world in these types of situations for that. And then, of course, following us on Tails is always a good thing. And then I'll drop the link join here into chat. This is how you can get the free Stokastic Sims by signing up through any of our partners here. But I will drop that into chat in just 1 second. Welcome back, Greg.
Yeah. Oh, my brother locked himself out of our house, so I was just going to let him in.
All right, there's the link join going in there. Waylon Jennings, I'm not playing on I should be playing on the secret side. I should have set something up. I'm playing I won't play from this first game, but I'm looking at JSN and McMillan, but I did not play the 2-game slate on the secret side. There's just too much overlap on 2-game slates there.
All right. So, where we? Okay. So, we've answered all the super chats now. Emac, wide receivers.
We've covered running backs. The only running back situation we didn't get super in depth to is Tampa Bay. So, you want me to hit that real quick?
Sure.
All right. So Tampa Bay is mostly Bucky Irving on the first 2 downs, and he does get passing work on those downs. Third downs have been going to Rachaad White. He occasionally covers for Bucky on rushing downs. And then Tucker has been getting a few red zone touches. He is now the red zone back. He doesn't get very many targets. His best path, he gets a bump if either one of the other guys gets hurt. That's interesting there. So because if he would then become kind of more of the running back, and then Bucky would lean more towards the passing downs. They have not played Irving over 57% of the snaps in his 4 or 5 games that he's been back since his lengthy injury. Most of it, about 45% of the snaps have been going to the wide, and then between 5 and 10% has been going to Tucker. He just happened to score a touchdown here and there.
It's so tough, the running back situation for the Buccaneers, because I know there's going to be some people who want to play Sean Tucker. You kind of need 2 touchdowns out of him just because that's where all his fantasy points come from. But then also he takes away from Bucky Irving, because Bucky Irving gets almost no goal line work.
Yep.
So as far as the two chalk guys, Christian McCaffrey and JSN, here's why I want to prioritize getting both of them into lineups, even though you can't call both of them must plays because it's a 2-game slate. The running back situation, the Panthers have 2 running backs that they like to utilize, at least to some extent. I prefer Rico Dowdle to Chuba Hubbard. The Seahawks running back situation, that's anybody's guess on a week-to-week basis. And then also, you have for the Buccaneers, Bucky Irving is basically no touchdown equity. And then you've got a guy in Sean Tucker who only has touchdown. He does nothing but potentially score touchdowns. So if I'm looking at the running backs that I actually want to be prioritizing overall, Christian McCaffrey, that's an obvious one. I'll kind of tier these guys off. Tier 1 is Christian McCaffrey. Tier 2 for me is Bucky Irving and Rico Dowdle. Tier 3, it's the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet coin flip. I prefer Charbonnet on FanDuel. I prefer Kenneth Walker over on DraftKings. And then the rest of the guys like Chuba Hubbard, Rashad White, Sean Tucker, Brian Robinson, I don't really have that much interest in any of those guys, Emac. Like I don't want to just hope Sean Tucker falls into the end zone twice. And then if he scores once, he's probably not going to matter for the slate.
Agreed. And Robinson, I mean, if he ends up doing anything, it's because McCaffrey got hurt, and he's still got to go against an amazing defense. So,
yeah, let's see. Was there any other questions? No from there. All right, so over at the tight ends, because we haven't really talked specifically, we talked about pass catchers, not like the tight ends individually. You guys could see from our data, the later tight ends, George Kittle projects really well on the high end. AJ Barner projects well as a points per dollar play. Everybody else is kind of a dart throw between Tremble, K-Dot, and Mitchell Evans. I really want to prioritize either finding the salary to get up to George Kittle. If I can't, then just play AJ Barner. That's kind of the way I view the tight end position. I don't have that. I know you said you're playing Tommy Tremble a little bit. I don't have that much interest in Tremble, K-Dot, and Mitchell Evans or any of the other guys for myself personally.
Yeah, you completely nailed it. Kittle has 3 of the top 12 single game receiving yard totals for a tight end in league history. He's phenomenal. AJ Barner should be on the field 80% or more of the snaps. He has 19. AJ Barner has 19 red zone chances over the last 4 games. He is the the quarterback when they do the Seattle shove. I made that up. I don't know what they call it, but I'm not calling it the tush push. It's the Seattle shove. Otten, we already talked about. Tremble is just purely a salary saver. And then Eric Saubert was brought in to replace Arroyo, the rookie who was hurt. He has 3 targets in the last 3 games, even though he's on the field for 30% of the snaps. He's only a showdown play, and I don't really even want to go there. So you're really kind of looking at 4, but it's really 2. it's Otten for differentiation and hoping he's one of the 6 potential receiving targets that gets a touchdown. Tremble for savings, and then Barner. But Barner's not sneaky. I heard some people say Barner was sneaky. Nobody's sneaky on 2 games. Not here. Other people's content. So.
And other tight ends, nothing else. One thing that we didn't talk about too much was some of the wide receivers for the 49ers or for the Seahawks beyond JSN. Do you have any concerns, Emac, about Ricky Pearsall's workload, just the often injured? I do worry a little bit that there are guys who, like potentially Ricky Pearsall, who are not actually 100%, but because the game is so high leverage, they're going to try to play and just be completely ineffective. I'm pretty concerned about Ricky Pearsall. He could end up just playing and looking fine. I have some worries, though.
I have those same worries. Plus, he also has to go against that good outside corners for Seattle. So I'm not particularly enthralled with him. And
then one other thing that's interesting.
I don't feel good. I think he's one of the top 5 guys, but yeah, I don't feel good. This is where we start talking in circles, everyone.
Doesn't show up as like a massive leverage score or anything, but Cooper Kupp is showing up a good amount for me when I run the Sims. So as far as the cheaper wide receivers go for this slate, I think a lot of these, I should say the mid-range actually, because there's nobody who's like a punt that I want to be playing at like, in the 3K range or anything at wide receiver. But we talked about guys like Egbuka at the wide receiver position. We talked about Jalen Coker a little bit. There are a lot of guys who are like boom bust sort of options. And Cooper Kupp, I think I might have stated this wrong. Cooper Kupp is the only guy in the 3K range that shows up at all in the Sims, which kind of makes him notable. I don't feel great about Kupp, but there's nobody else that I think is viable at all in the 3K range at wide receiver, unless I'm missing somebody.
How much is Rashid Shaheed?
44.
Okay. Yeah, that's not the 3K range. Yeah, Kupp's like 38, 37 or 38, right? On DK?
He is, I can't find him here. Who'd you say?
Kupp?
Oh yeah, Kupp 30. Yeah, Kupp's 3,600. And then also it's also worth noting that Kupp isn't all that popular either. He's only about 20% owned. So he's the only viable sub 4K guy, and he isn't pulling ownership. So I get why the Sims are pushing him a little bit. I just don't know who else you go to if you're punting at wide receiver.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed and Coker, although both those guys are more expensive, right?
Anything else here, wide receiver, Emac?
No, other than I do like Shaheed. He got his second nomination for a Pro Bowl kick returner. He didn't get it last year, but he did this year. In the last 4 games, he has returned both a punt and a kickoff for a touchdown for Seattle. He does not yet have a receiving touchdown, but I did like his, I think it was like over 28.5 or 32.5 yards. I thought that was interesting. That is also is over on Tails. You can just click the link. AI will send you to the screen where you can choose your book and you can tail that one. But in my picks, guys, I usually say where I would cut off. I wouldn't go below a certain wager, because if you're like me and you're stuck with only one book to really look at in Florida, sometimes what is a good bet is no longer a good bet. If Lindy's posting it at -120 and I can't get it better than -135, that becomes a trickier bet.
So I'm running the Sims on screen. I mostly want to see what are the most, we got a projection ownership update a little bit ago. So I want to see what's showing up as the most duped lineups for the 2-game slate. So I'm going to pull this up right here, and then I'll see we got some more super chats that came in. So this one lineup, Emac, is expected to be duped way more than every other one. This is the lineup that if this lineup wins, nobody wins. Bryce Young, Rico Dowdle, Bucky Irving, JSN, Tet McMillan, Cooper Kupp, AJ Barner, Christian McCaffrey, Seahawks defense. Uses all the salary. That is the #1 most duped lineup for today, Emac. Don't play that lineup. Don't play that lineup. If that lineup wins, then it's going to be like a 200-way split for first place.
God, Bucky, our Sims really like Bucky Irving on DK. 78% against 5% ownership. I'm capping that at 60 on my 50 lineups. I don't feel trustworthy of Bucky. Right, he's not running with the same efficiency that he did last year.
I'm going to set this to 2 uniques, and then I'll look at who we got the most exposure to at each position in a second. But first, the super chat here from Djax. Concerned about Pearsall, but not Kittle, who was a run blocker when he returned last time. But he wasn't a run blocker because of the injury. It was just because that was kind of the way that the game went that time. And then also says Trent Williams isn't 100%. I think Kittle has to block. So here's part of the issue, though. If you're paying up a tight end, there's nobody to go to but George Kittle. And he's also by far the highest upside tight end of anybody on the slate. I just don't think he's comparable to Ricky Pearsall because there are so many other wide receivers to roster. There are not so many other tight ends to roster for the slate. But then also, if you look at George Kittle, I could be wrong. I don't think he's going to be massively limited by the ankle injury. Remember, it wasn't even like he had a chance to play in last week's game. They ultimately had decided to hold him out, but it seemed like he had an outside chance to play last week. I think Kittle should be fine this week.
Yeah, I'm coming in for what it's worth. I've got more Barner than Kittle, but I've got 58% Barner and 45% Kittle, 10% Trumbull, 2% Otten, 50 lineups. So,
all right, here are the exposures from the Sims in this final run leading up to lock. You'll see, first off, starting at the quarterback position, look how spread out this is, Emac. We've got, coming out of the Sims here, 27% Mayfield, 26% Darnold, 23% Bryce Young, 23% Brock Purdy. There's no massive differentiation in our data between the quarterbacks. They're all comparably owned. They show up at a similar amount of exposure in the Sims. This isn't really where we're going to be able to massively differentiate from the field. At running back, here's what showed up at running back. McCaffrey the most, although a little bit underweight to the field. He's showing up in 77% of lineups with 82% ownership. Then we get overweight to the field to Dowdle and Bucky Irving. And then we've got more of Kenneth Walker than Charbonnet, which I'm on board with. Mentioned before, FanDuel, I prefer Charbonnet. DraftKings, I prefer Kenneth Walker. Then Chuba Hubbard in a couple lineups, but pretty underweight to the field to Hubbard. He doesn't really show up in any amount of lineups that kind of matters. At the wide receiver spot, JSN and Ted McMillan are two most rostered wide receivers, the only two guys we get in over 60% of lineups. Actually, the only two we even get in over 40% of lineups, but still underweight to the field to JSN because he's 80% owned. He's showing up in 64% of lineups. Overweight to McMillan. Kupp, our most rostered punt guy, 40% of lineups with him at $3,600. So if you're looking to save salary, our data likes Cooper Kupp. The two other wide receivers, just one other wide receiver in over 30% of lineups is Mike Evans. Everything else is kind of spread out beyond that. We don't get to a significant amount of any other wide receiver on the slate. Did you say anything that there was significantly different you were boosting or anything like that at wide receiver?
No, it's so funny because of the way the quarterbacks are all mostly even that it's making everything else mostly even aside from the three priority plays at the skill positions.
So I don't mind getting more than 1% of Igbuka. Wouldn't go crazy with him, but I do think that he is a viable contrarian wide receiver option for today. But once again, not anything worth going totally crazy with there. I just think that there is a path for him. And then as far as the tight end exposure goes, it's Barner and Kittle and nobody else really showing up. 65% Barner, 40% Kittle, a couple percentage points of other guys because there's some, double tight end lineups. But that's it. We only got exposure to 4 tight ends coming out of the Sims and only 2 of them more than 10% of lineups, Emac.
This is going to be so much fun.
Who are you picking to win? Who wins the games today?
I am going with Tampa Bay, and I hope the Seahawks. That's picking with my heart.
Oh, that's right. Homer pick. I assume most people know, but Emac and Mama Mac, both of them are Seahawks fans. So yes. Emac, it might be a little bit hard for him to separate his bias there. I am going to pick. I'll go Tampa Bay and Seattle. I'm going to pick Tampa Bay to win today and then get eliminated when.
Yeah, exactly. That it's just going to be a gut punch.
Yeah,
that was my thought. That's what. Yeah, this Greg. I think of that just because it's funny. Greg, just because he loves pure chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's also that division deserves to have a below 500 winner this year.
Oh, good times.
Deserves it. Here's also something that's funny. In the event that, let's say Igbuka outplays McMillan today, but then the Panthers win the division, like, our voters just going to give Ted McMillan the rookie of the year then because he's the one who got into the playoffs, even if, because all their numbers are exactly the same pretty much heading into this game. So, what happens if Igbuka has the bigger game of the two today, but the Panthers get in the playoffs? That's something I'm interested in. Anybody that you are underweight to the field to that you're terrifying ruining your day, Emac?
I ended up being under on all sites to JSN and to Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh, big balls on this guy. So I think Jalen McMillan is going to be massively popular today, and that's the guy who I'm most because he's playing so well when he's on the field, even though it's been limited snaps. He's the one that I'm most nervous about.
Yep, I think it's pretty funny. I went 20% Purdy on DK. We got him at almost 30. McCaffrey, I'm at 68. We have him at just over 80%. I think he might come in a tick higher. I'm over on Bucky. I don't like it, but where else am I going to spend the money? Which is a dumb answer, but that's the way it goes. Smith and Jigba. Oh, I guess I did it. I apologize. I ended up 86% Jackson Smith and Jigba. That must have been because I was pushing down McCaffrey and I didn't put a cap on JSN, but I'm under him on my 150 on FanDuel. I know that.
All right, let's check Discord one more time to see. We did get a couple of questions came in here on Discord the last few minutes. Here's an interesting one, Einstein. If you had to fade one, who would you fade, CMC or JSN? Ooh. I'll say McCaffrey because, boy, I don't feel great about either of it.
No.
I
would fade JSN, and here's why. Because who's the coach? Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak, they play so effing conservative to start these games. And if they do that against the 49ers, it's going to be a problem. And they could be down by multiple touchdowns in the first half. They don't throw to JSN. They've done this in like 4 of their last 7 games. I mean, they had 1 target to him or 2 targets to him against Atlanta. It was 3-3 at the half. They did the same thing 2 weeks later. He had 3 targets at the half. And they were down in that one. They almost lost to Indy because they're bleeping setting up the run. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. So if they come out slow, that's the key to the 49ers win. Because
I'm gonna say McCaffrey just because Jason's matchup is so much easier than what McCaffrey's is. So I'll say I don't feel good about either of these as guys to be underweight to, but I will say McCaffrey. We've got Larson wants to know, do we like Bucky Irving on FanDuel? He's a stronger play on DraftKings than FanDuel because he just doesn't have that much touchdown equity, and the touchdown matters more on FanDuel. He's $8,600 and not getting goal line touches. That makes him a little bit tougher to click. And then Einstein says, would it be unique to have a Baker +3 that doesn't include Bucky? Probably not really. Godwin's going to be somewhat popular. Mike Evans will pull ownership. Jalen McMillan, I think, is going to be massively popular. So I don't think it's going to be that unique of a build.
Yeah, I don't either. And you really need 3 touchdowns at least for that one to work out.
And that does it for the questions that we have here, Emac. Any final thoughts on the slate before we close it out?
No, go Seahawks. Go my lineups, and go to Tails. Follow me on Tails. Get me up to 480 followers. Oh, that's only 4 more. Get me up to 490 followers. And I'll write up the Sunday night or tonight's breakdown for you guys with every player ranked and comments. And we have NBA live before lock 6:30 tonight. It's an odd 7:30 start. So me and Spags will be on then.
Yep. And I'm doing NFL projections tonight, guys. It's my first time doing the live projections for the site. So I'll hang out in Discord a little bit as well as I update everything. So if you guys do have any questions for the night showdown slate, I'll hang out in Discord while I'm updating the projections. You can direct any questions to me. I think that'll be a fun thing that I could do for today. Other than that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Good luck. Enjoy the games. See you guys back here tomorrow. Peace.